And this is the CSL This Week. Hey folks, I'm Alex Bastiavansky, and then there were two. The CSL playoffs have provided some fascinating matchups over the past couple of weeks, and we've seen some massive upsets along the way as well. Who would have thought that two expansion teams would be the last club standing? The Brantford Galaxy and Portugal FC squared off last Friday in the first semifinal, and it was an intriguing matchup to say the least. Portugal were the veteran squad, a team that's been in the CSL since 2001, and they certainly have had their share of big game experiences. Standing in their way, though, were the Galaxy, an expansion team that's been so impressive in their inaugural season. But would the talented newcomers have enough left in the tank to continue their improbable march to the final? Let's check out the highlights.
Those expecting a tight defensive contest from Centennial were in for a big surprise. Ranko Golyanin gets things started for the Galaxy. No surprise there. In the 21st minute, nice passing out front. He puts it in. Brantford up 1-0. 14 minutes later, it's Ranko again, but look at how much time and space he has here. Poor marking by Portugal. What a shot, though. Top shelf pass, Michael Silva. 2-zip Galaxy in full control, right? Not so fast. 5 minutes later, Jarek Whiteman responds for Portugal. The lead's cut in half. Take a look from a different angle. There it is. And it's a 2-1 game. At the 49th minute mark, though, Andrea Lombardo knots it right up at 2 as he blows the shot past Ante Damjanovic. But 3 minutes later, off the cross, it's Milodrag Enjakovic putting the Galaxy right back out front, 3-2. Shortly after, youngster Kyle Grutenbauer rips the shot past Silva. Brantford regains the 2-goal cushion. Finally, it's Golyanin completing the hat-trick as he holds off the Portugal defender. Beautiful goal, 5-2 for the Galaxy. Just before full-time, Massimo Mirabelli, the young superstar for Portugal, rips it home to make it 5-3, but in the end it doesn't matter. Brantford puts up a 5 spot, and they celebrate a huge win that takes them into the CSL final. Incredible result, 8 goals in total from two teams that brought their offensive A games. For the Galaxy, though, a win is a win, and they advance to the CSL Championship.
Well, the second semifinal was a tantalizing matchup between two old-school rivals, Toronto, Croatia and Hamilton, Croatia. Two clubs with over 50 years of tradition, numerous titles, and arguably the most passionate fans in the CSL. The game was intense, and I'll tell you, from a producer's standpoint, I'd like to personally thank both teams for providing some of the best highlights we've had on the show all season.
A virtual sellout in Steeltown as the two Croatian sides meet up to see who would face Brantford in the final. James Milford Jr. Get used to hearing that name. Look at these saves that he makes here. 1, 2, 3 from point-blank range. Incredible. His teammates rightly show their love. More Toronto moments later, CSL leading scorer Tiomir Miletic breaks in, actually hits the leg of Peter Tarayansky, stays out. Toronto can't knock home the rebound, and Hamilton escapes another close call as Miletic can't believe his bad luck. Then Hamilton starts to turn it on. Ian Leggett threads to Preston Corporal, who manages to get the shot off, but Sandy Matika smothers it to keep things scoreless. Wouldn't last much longer, though. Aidan O'Keefe fights off two Toronto players here and goes down at the edge of the box to set up the dangerous free kick, and just take a look at what happens. Heartbreak for Toronto as the deflection slides past Matika and Hamilton draws first blood. Thanks to O'Keefe in the 27th minute of play, the Steeltown fans celebrate in style. Second half now, Toronto pressing hard, but Melford gets bailed out by Tarayansky with the goal light stand right there. But in the 54th minute, Hamilton pads their lead. It's a great pass from Corporal to Leggett. Even better shot as he pounds it home past the shell-shocked Matika. Hamilton can feel it. They celebrate. But Toronto weren't about to fold up their tent and go home quite yet. That's where James Melford took things to another level in goal. First, he pulls off the ridiculous stop off two Toronto blasts from in close to preserve the shutout. And he gets some love from a grateful Ivan Razumovic right there. Moments later, Melford comes off his line perfectly to make another ridiculous stop on the disbelieving Toronto Croats. This was almost unfair. Not to be outdone, though, Sandy Matika pulls off the massive save against Preston Corporal to keep it 2-0. But that's the way it ends, and the Hamilton faithful kept the party going long afterwards. For the second straight encounter, Hamilton tops Toronto 2-0, but this win allows the Steeltowners to punch their ticket to the CSL final. After the game, I asked Hamilton coach Ronnie Davidson about the man who made all the difference for them in the game, keeper James Melford.
Melford, first of all, I think was man of the match, without question. He saved it when it mattered, and he's a big game player. What he brought to this team, he brought a bit of, if you want to call it maturity at the back, and control at the back, and just settled our defence. He brought confidence to the back four as well, which was key, because at the time when we brought him in, we were starting to lose that a little bit. It feels great. I think for the club, the fans, we've had fans all season, fantastic. The players, a lot of new guys, they've all bought into the plan, worked hard, and it feels absolutely wonderful.
Anthony Totera from OSA Touchline Television joins me in the studio to talk about what went down in the semis and to give us a preview of the final. This is just it's the best time of year, man.
You got that right. It's like Christmas early.
It is. I can't remember the last time I was this excited about the CSL playoffs, just from top to bottom. Any team really could have taken it this year, those top 8 teams, and as we saw, I mean, Croatia knocking off, first of all, York first, and anything could happen this year, and it has. So
shocking, Alex.
Yeah.
2 expansion teams in the final, Brantford and Hamilton. This goes to show you what a success story expansion has been this season. But let's talk about the Brantford Galaxy. Friday night, and a whole bunch of their supporters down at Centennial Stadium, flag waving, flares. Fans were just electric and vocal. It was fantastic. But I got to talk about Ante Damjanovic. Portugal FC, Alex, in the first 15 minutes, for my opinion, were dominating. Missed 2 great chances, but 2 great saves by Damjanovic. Let's talk about Ranko Golian. Here is a guy in 2002 with Milwaukee Rampage in the USL, won a championship. So this guy knows and understands what it takes to taste the champagne in the end.
And he had a hat trick. He had a hat trick in that game.
Unbelievable.
But this is the guy that's done it all year for them. And we'll get to him a little bit more, of course, with Vukovic going out and stuff, and Golian and stepping up. He's the team captain. He's the leader on the team.
Right.
Fantastic job. And Jelkovic, of course, I mean, he was one of the top scorers all year. He had a goal in this game. Lombardo, Whiteman, Mirabelli. No surprise, the guys for Portugal in this all season long. It's been those 3. Lombardo, more of a veteran presence now. Whiteman and Mirabelli, so much hope for the future for these guys. I guess the question I have is, are they going to be around next year, or are they going to get snapped up by someone?
Who knows, Alex? But getting back to the game Friday night, Alex, I was a little bit disappointed in Portugal FC's defense. I mean, I think they let the team down a bit. A little bit surprised, to be honest, that Jamal Smith didn't start and didn't play. Here's a kid that I thought should have been starting, but their defense let them down. I think the forwards of Portugal FC did everything they could, and the goaltender Silva was just outstanding when he needed to be. But also, let's go back to Brantford Galaxy. There was a couple players that I was really impressed with that we haven't spoken about all year. Is Kyle Grotenboer. This is a young fellow that brings a lot of heart and passion to the game. Smarts, very intelligent with the ball. Zvonko Bukala, what a player in the last couple games against Serbian White Eagles and also in this semifinal. I mean, kudos to Brantford Galaxy, but we need the city of Brantford, Alex, and I think you would echo this, is get them a better facility for next year.
We'll see what happens with that. I mean, if it can happen that quickly, but especially for the future, and they've showed they're around for the long haul, especially with the attendance they've gotten. Let's move on to Hamilton and Toronto now. Just unbelievable atmosphere in this game. I was there filming it for the highlights, and the Hamilton fans, they always come out. They've supported this team for 50 years, and it was just, of course, Croatia versus Croatia. Fantastic rivalry. Aiden O'Keefe at the 27th minute mark to get things started. Off an unfortunate deflection, actually, on a free kick where it went off the Croatian wall and went into the back of the net. Adam Legan in the second half from 18 yards out. Absolutely gorgeous strike. But you know what? And you would agree with this. When we saw Toronto-Croatia play 3 weeks ago now against Hamilton in a game where it could have meant the difference for their playoffs, and they came out so flat and they lost 2-0 to Hamilton. Much different 2-0 game this time. Toronto-Croatia looked very good.
Absolutely. But one player only that stood out for me was Melford James. Here's a guy that came out of the Chicago Fire system. The last 10 to 11 games, the Hamilton-Croatia team has looked confident in front of him, relaxed, and he knows how to make the big saves. This guy here, I will guarantee you, Hamilton, enjoy him for this championship game. Someone will scoop him up next year. An MLS team somewhere in Europe, they will take him.
Well, I interviewed Ronnie after the game, and he made a point of saying, I mean, this is a fact. So they've had him for 10 games.
Right.
Now, they've had him for 10 games. They've won all 10 with him in there. He said, unquestionably, this is the reason why there's so much more confidence now, and they've won 10 games in a row. He made the saves. I mean, we showed it in the highlights. You know, the saves that this guy made in this game. I had Toronto Croatia fans around me, and they were, I can't tell you what they were saying, I mean, because this is a family show.
Right.
But they were beside themselves. They could not believe the saves this guy was saying. He was the difference in the game.
But they were giving credit where credit was due to their goalkeeper. And let's also very quickly talk about Ronnie Davidson. I've spoke about him all year. OSL Coach of the Year last year in 2009, and it looks to be that this guy is going to get to the final here. And again, he's going to be very sharp and understands what it takes to get this team to the championship stage after the game.
Yeah. One thing that Hamilton did do, and we've talked about this before, Ronnie likes that they marked Miletic very closely. He did get a couple of chances, but they were really all over Miletic. They eliminated that aspect of Toronto Croatia's game, and they marked him roughly when needed as well. They sent a message as well. They were not going to give him any room at all, and that's exactly what they did. They took him out of it, and it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen against Brantford, which we're going to talk about momentarily about what's going to happen. But great rivalry. It's unfortunate Toronto had to go out, but it's really great to see Hamilton in there as a first-year team.
Let's talk about the Hamilton Croatia supporters very quickly. Alex, they've filled the stadium at Brian Timmins Stadium all season long. They're vocal. They're going to come out in droves in this final. And again, to the older and other clubs that have been in the CSL for a number of years, this is a fantastic couple of teams that are in the final with their fan support and the love of Canadian soccer that they have. Great work, Hamilton. Great work, Brantford. You and your supporters deserve to be in this final.
Pretty much the top two attended teams, and they're going to be in the final. We got to take a quick break. The CSL this week will be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the show. So Hamilton and Brantford in the final. Fascinating matchup. Surprising to some people because they're two expansion teams, but really when you look at the way these guys played all season, they came out of the gate strong, both teams. It's really not that surprising. They had so many solid players on their teams this year. I asked Coach Ronnie Davidson after the big win against Toronto Croatia what he thought would be Hamilton's keys to victory against Brantford in the final. Take a listen.
We played them down here at Brian Timmins with 2-2. It was a great game. They've changed the roster, so it's got a difficult question to answer actually. And I think it will be clearly they're poking up front, and the midfield will be a tough battle. Brantford brought in a lot of imported players, so those players are going to be big game players. So we're going to, I think it'll be a patient game by both teams. I'm expecting a tough game.
And I like Ronnie's honesty there about it's a very difficult question because the fact that Brantford's roster has changed throughout the year.
Yeah.
They've lost some of those key players. Let's start with Brantford then and go about that because, you look at like Drazen Vukovic, who they lost to, was their top scorer, was their MVP early in the season. They lose him to a knee injury. He goes back home to Croatia. And they could have folded up their 10 at that point, but they have so many good players on this team, so much depth on this team. And it's not surprising they've done as well as they had, and they're going to throw a lot at Hamilton in the final.
Oh, you got that right, Alex. A couple keys to Brantford's Galaxy's success so far this season has been their goaltending. Ante Damjanovic has come up big game after game after game. But let's not talk about the scoring machine and Ranko Golin. This guy here scored a couple fantastic goals. He scored 3 against Portugal FC, but 2 of them were just fantastic goals. This guy here knows what it takes to win. He's in his early 30s and he's still out there running like a young man. Also, let's talk about Bukala. This guy has come to play in the last 3 or 4 games, and Kyle Grotenboer. This guy brings a lot to the table. And I think Brantford seems to me, Alex, clicking on all the right cylinders right now.
What do you say about your big game players, though? They come through in the big game situations.
They do.
And Golinin certainly did that. He's been their leader all season long. The respect this guy gets, when I did the team profile for Brantford and I was going around interviewing the different players and the coaches, the tremendous respect this guy gets. That's why he's their team leader. 3 goals. Another guy I want to mention who's just an absolutely phenomenal defender, Patrick Gerhardt.
Yes.
The young Swiss player who
Yes.
really, I'm knocking myself in the head because we haven't talked about this guy enough throughout the season. This guy is absolutely unreal on the back end for Brantford, so solid, and I'll tell you what, when he wants to go with the ball, there's nothing stopping this guy.
No,
he
he's
just
got
goes right
blazing
through.
speed.
Absolutely.
Blazing speed.
Yeah.
And this is a young guy. I'm glad you mentioned him because we haven't really talked about him very much. Very solid, very composed, a lot of speed. And this is what I've noticed about the Brantford Galaxy. You can't really rattle them in the back there. If one goes in, that's fine. They regroup quickly and they're ready to come at you. I mean, Portugal FC collapsed, Alex. When they came back and tied that game 2-2, bang, Brantford Galaxy Galaxy scored a one within a couple minutes after that, and lights out for Portugal FC after that.
Peaking at the right time, and that is the key, as we've mentioned all season long with this. Hamilton, what can you say? A great coach in Ronnie Davidson. A club that's been around for over 50 years, and again, they're not an expansion team. They did exist, of course, in the OSL last year. Very, very strong program for years. They brought in some key additions this year, such as a Preston Corporal, who've just absolutely shone for them. And it's great to see them in the final, and they're such a strong team.
Yeah, they're going to have to contain Preston Corporal, Aiden O'Keefe. We've got the veteran in Jamie Dodds. Again, I said to you, this guy will go through a brick wall for his team and his teammates to win. The smarts of Ronnie Davidson. But again, the key again comes down to meet the goaltending. Melford James against Andy Damjanovic. This is going to be a display of goaltending that we've never seen before.
Yeah, speaking as a former goalie myself, not at the high level these guys are, but my father played professionally and stuff, and I just have such an admiration when I see fantastic goaltending, and that's what I saw in the game against Toronto, Croatia. The saves that James Melford was making absolutely had me shaking my head, the supporters shaking their head, and Hamilton fans feeling pretty proud because this guy has made all the difference on that team. And as I said last year, I even predicted before the semi, I said this guy could be Hamilton's game breaker because he's been that strong. He has so far. So looking at this matchup now, your keys to victory for this game, what is it going to be for both teams? What do you think?
Hamilton is going to have to contain Golian. They're going to have to contain him, and they're going to have to capitalize on their chances that they get against Ante Damjanovic. They have to put away their chances. If it's one or two chances early on, they have to bury their chances. As for Brantford Galaxy, this is a team that's hard to figure out, Alex. They'll go up 2-0 as they did against Portugal FC. They collapse 2-2, but then they pick it up right again with Ranko and Bakula and the veterans they have there, and they bring it up another notch, and they just give it back. And they score and they score and they score in waves. So it could come down to some of the younger, fresher legs in Hamilton, Croatia against the veteran guys in Brantford Galaxy. This is going to be a very hard one to pick.
Jason Leggett, Ian Leggett, Jason Shannon for Hamilton. Two guys also we haven't mentioned enough that have been so impressive this year as we wind it down here. What I'm really looking forward to is, you really couldn't have asked for two better teams in terms of crowd support. These are probably the two best attended teams in the CSL this year. And it's going to be just a great atmosphere. Next week, we're going to have a finals recap. We're both obviously going to be at the game doing interviews. We're going to have a finals recap. But this is one of the most highly anticipated finals we've had in the CSL for a long time. Thanks for being here, buddy.
What's your pick quickly,
Alex? Quickly, I'm going to have to take Hamilton.
So am I, Hamilton and Ronnie Davidson. Good luck to both teams.
We'll be back in just a moment. So it's Hamilton and Brantford for all the marbles, two first-year squads that looked the veteran CSL clubs right in the eyes and refused to blink all season. It's going to be a fascinating matchup, and here's a look now at what fans can expect from the big game.
In a year that saw 3 expansion teams hit the field for the first time, 2 of those squads remain standing to face off for the CSL Championship title on October 31st. It's a scenario that was almost unthinkable to the average fan back on May 8th, when the season kicked off. However, when you look deeper into the makeup of the rosters of both Brantford and Hamilton, a clearer picture emerges as to why these squads were so competitive right away. First, a look at Hamilton, Croatia. As we've mentioned before, while this is their first year in the Canadian Soccer League, they are by no means a brand new team. The Croats previously played in the OSL and brought the bulk of their established team to the league this year. Hamilton, Croatia have a proud tradition that goes back over 50 years, and led by 2009 OSL Coach of the Year Ronnie Davidson, they had a strong foundation in place to compete immediately with the traditional powers of the CSL. And compete they did. Hamilton came flying out of the gate this year, going undefeated in their first 6 games. The loudest wake-up call they delivered to the CSL establishment occurred back on July 9th, when the Croats took on a veteran Portugal FC squad and blanked them 5-0 at Lamport Stadium in one of the most dominant performances of any team this year. Some key players for Hamilton: Liberian international Preston Corporal, a first-year player who was one of the CSL's leading scorers and one of its most dynamic young players. Aiden O'Keefe, an Irish import who finished 3rd overall in goals with 12. Ivan Razumovic, a Croatian who has added a solid presence to the Hamilton back end. Jason Shannon adds more punch up front, and Adam Leggett is a creative midfielder with a scorer's touch. By far the biggest addition, though, down the stretch made by Ronnie Davidson was the addition of James Melford Jr., a Brampton native who previously played with the Chicago Fire of MLS, and in the 10 games he started since joining the team, he's been the league's top goalkeeper over that time. In contrast to Hamilton, the Brantford Galaxy were a team that truly started from scratch in 2010. They brought in talented imports from Europe and mixed them with up-and-coming players from Brantford's youth soccer system to create a winning combination. Brantford also shot out of the gate this year, going unbeaten in their first 5 games and capturing the imagination of a city that was starving for professional soccer. One player that captivated fans immediately was Croatian import Dražen Vukovic, who scored highlight reel goals and was one of the league leaders by mid-season. However, an unfortunate knee injury knocked Vukovic out for the rest of the year in July. That's when Brantford needed to regroup. After a slide that put a playoff berth in question, veterans stepped up and carried this squad to the promised land. You can't say enough about striker Ranko Goljanin, their offensive weapon who led the team with 11 goals in the regular season and a massive hat-trick in the semi-final last weekend. Miodrag Anđelković is a Serbian import that added 10 goals, and keeper Ante Damjanovic has been a standout in goal for the Galaxy all season and will need to be at the top of his game to hold off a powerful Hamilton offense. There's not much separating these teams. In 2 head-to-head matchups this year, they tied both games. The first was a 2-2 draw on June 11th, and then again on July 18th, they tied 3-3. The Brantford Galaxy and Hamilton, Croatia. 2 first-year CSL teams competing for its biggest prize this Sunday. These teams had the best fan support of any clubs this year, and the atmosphere at Centennial Stadium promises to be electric. So there it is. The final goes Sunday, October 31st at Centennial Stadium. Brantford and Hamilton. There will be an award ceremony first at 2:15 and kickoff will follow shortly afterwards. Don't miss it. Time now for a little Q&A. It's Ask the Commish with CSL Commissioner Dominic DiGeronimo.
I'm Anthony Toter here with Commissioner Dominic DiGeronimo. Dominic, this week there's a lot of news in the newspapers all over the country about expansion. Great success this season with Milltown, Hamilton, and Brantford. What is on the horizon for the CSL coming in 2011?
Well, ideally we'd like to be in Windsor, Kitchener, Ottawa, perhaps Kingston, in Durham region as well. Those are areas that we're targeting. How many of them we'll have in the fold for 2011, we'll know probably by the time we do our halftime announcement at the finals on October 31st. We do have a couple of applications in at this time. I'm not at liberty to let you know where they are, but I've kind of given away the spots where we'd like to be, so it'll definitely involve some of those cities.
Thank you, Commissioner DiGeronimo. And if you'd like to ask the Commissioner a question, you can email him at askthecommish@canadiansoccerleague.ca.
And that's it for this week. The title game goes Sunday, October 31st at Centennial Stadium. For more information about the final, you can go to canadiansoccerleague.ca. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next week for a finals recap.